In the ancient biblical narrative, Lot is a central figure who plays a significant role in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot was the nephew of Abram, who would later be known as Abraham, one of the patriarchs of the Hebrew Bible. The story of Lot's move to Sodom begins with a journey undertaken by Abram and Lot, who had left their homeland in Ur of the Chaldeans to travel to the land of Canaan, as commanded by God. As they traveled, both Abram and Lot accumulated significant wealth, including livestock, herds, and tents. Their combined assets grew so large and could not support both their households together. This led to conflicts between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot, prompting Abram to suggest they separate to avoid further strife. Abram, demonstrating his generous nature, allowed Lot to choose any part of the land he desired. Lot surveyed the land and was drawn to the plains of Jordan, which reminded him of the lushness of Egypt. He chose to settle in the cities of the plain, ultimately pitching his tents near the city of Sodom. Sodom and Gomorrah were cities located in the region of the Dead Sea, known for their prosperity and lush surroundings. These cities were affluent and with commerce and trade flourishing due to their strategic location. Their inhabitants enjoyed a life of abundance and luxury, but this prosperity came at a spiritual and moral cost. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah, however, were known for their wickedness and sinful behavior. The Bible describes them as being exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. Their decadence and disregard for moral and ethical principles were well known, and their actions were said to cry out to justice. Lot, despite the city's reputation, made his home in Sodom, perhaps attracted by the economic opportunities it offered. He lived with his wife and 2 daughters, integrating into the community but maintaining his faith in God. Lot's position in Sodom was somewhat respected, as he was found sitting at the city's gate, a place typically reserved for elders and leaders to conduct business and lease. Despite his standing in the city, Lot was a righteous man who was vexed by the filthy conversation of the wicked around him. His heart was troubled by the rampant immorality and depravity he witnessed daily. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah reaches its climax when God, having heard the outcry against the city's sins, decides to investigate the situation. 2 angels, disguised as men, are sent to Sodom to assess the city's moral state. Upon their arrival, Lot extends his hospitality to them, inviting them into his home and providing them with a meal. However, Sodom, demonstrating their depravity, surround Lot's house and demand to see the visitors to abuse them. Lot, in a desperate attempt to protect his guests, offers his daughters instead, but the mob refuses. The angels, seeing the wickedness firsthand, warn Lot of the impending divine destruction. They urge him to gather his family and flee the city. Reluctantly, Lot and his family are led out of Sodom by the angels, who instruct them not to look back as they escape. As Lot and his family flee to safety, God rains down sulfur and fire upon Sodom and Gomorrah, obliterating the cities and all their inhabitants. Lot's wife, unable to resist, looks back at the destruction and is transformed into a pillar of salt as a consequence. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah serves as a powerful testament to the dangers of moral decadence and the consequences of turning away from divine principles. It also highlights the mercy and protection extended to those who remain faithful, as demonstrated by Lot and his eventual deliverance. Lot's story is one of contrast, a man of righteousness dwelling among the wicked, a narrative of divine judgment and mercy intertwined. His relationship with Abram was one of mutual respect and familial love despite their separation. The tale of Sodom and Gomorrah continues to be a poignant reminder of the importance of faith, morality.
Thanks for watching. If this video has been an inspiration to you, please share and subscribe, and stay tuned for our Q&A. We thank you in advance. Question number 1. What was the primary sin of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah that led to their destruction? Answer. The primary sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was their extreme wickedness and immorality, particularly their grievous sins against hospitality and sexual immorality. The Bible specifically notes their sins as being very grave in Genesis. Scripture. Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sins so grievous." Genesis 18:20 NIV. Question number 2. Who did God send to carry out the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Answer. God sent 2 angels to Sodom to execute the judgment and destruction of the cities. These angels visited Lot to warn him and his family to flee before the impending destruction. Scripture. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. Genesis 19:1, NIV. Question number 3. Did Abraham try to intercede on behalf of Sodom? Answer. Abraham interceded with God by pleading for mercy, asking if the city would be spared if righteous people could be found within it. He started by asking if God would spare the city for the sake of 50 righteous people, and eventually negotiated down to 10. Scripture. Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." Genesis 18:32, NIV. Number 4. Question. What happened to Lot's wife as they fled from Sodom? Answer. Lot's wife looked back at the city of Sodom despite being warned not to, and as a result, she was turned into a pillar of salt. Scripture. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26, NIV. Question number 5. What does the story of Sodom and Gomorrah teach about God's judgment and mercy? Answer. The story illustrates that while God is just and will not tolerate sin indefinitely, he is also merciful, willing to spare the wicked for the sake of the righteous. It underscores the importance of righteousness and obedience to God's commands. Scripture. The Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Genesis 19:24, NIV. These questions and answers provide insight into the biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah, highlighting themes of sin, judgment, and divine mercy.